Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Monday and it's July the 29th, 2024. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. I always say the tide changes so frequently on these YouTube streets. So you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. Feel free to like and to share this video. And don't forget to subscribe. And our story today comes from Fort Liberty here in North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, Fort Liberty soldier gets jail time for stealing and selling military equipment. I'll provide you with a summary here and I'll identify some of my sources for you in the description box. And this case was prosecuted outside of the military. It was handled by the Department of Justice, the United States Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of North Carolina. So whatever I'm presenting with you today is currently available on their website. And here's an excellent summary from the DOJ's website from about a year ago. It gives you a synopsis of the case. It says a Fort Bragg officer. We know that it's Fort Liberty now, but back then it was still Fort Bragg. It says a Fort Bragg officer pleads guilty, and his wife, the executive officer of the Canberra University ROTC program, was convicted in government property theft that profited more than $2 million. And the date of this report was April the 21st, 2023. And so we'll pick up from there. So the key players in the story are 38-year-old Chief Warrant Officer III Christopher Hammond and his wife, 34-year-old Army Major Heather Hammond. Christopher Hammond was a logistic officer assigned to 3rd Special Forces Group on the base at Fort Liberty, and in his role he had the independent responsibility for the acquisition of supplies and equipment for his unit. So in other words, within military guidelines, he was responsible for ordering needed supplies and equipment from established military suppliers. Whatever the unit needed, Christopher Hammond's job was to order it. But the problem here has to do with a lack of oversight and a lack of accountability. The question is exactly who was making sure that Hammond was doing the right thing. It appears that nobody was. And it appears the issue at hand had more to do with greed and living a lifestyle that was fabricated. According to the indictment in this case, Christopher Hammond used his position as an acquisition officer for the Army base to order military supplies and equipment. He did not log them into the military property books when they came in. Instead, he kept them. He kept the items. He either kept them for himself, for his personal use, or he sold them to private individuals and kept the money for himself. And apparently, this had been going on for over 2 years when he was caught. I would say Christopher Hammond was acting like a dealer or like a broker. And this is how this entire problem came to light, was just by chance. And it all had to do with a warranty issue. One military supplier noticed that they had received a warranty concern from someone who indicated they had purchased a piece of equipment. And upon closer examination, the company noticed that the person with the warranty issue was not the military, it was a civilian. So they began to explore the issue a little bit closer, because they know that they don't sell to civilians. They are indeed a military supplier. So we don't know whether or not they contacted that person directly, or whether or not they went directly to the military and said there's something wrong, things are not adding up. But whatever process was used, they began to pay closer attention to what was going on the base in that logistic department, and specifically they began to look at what Christopher Hammond was doing. So, as you might imagine, they began tracking very closely what he was doing, but they were doing it in a secretive manner. Not only did they pay attention to what he was purchasing, they were also paying attention to his money trail. So they were looking at the entire picture of this family, and with the help of Army CID and I'm sure civilian law enforcement agencies, they eventually raided their home. It was there they were able to trace back approximately 200 items that were either sold by the Hammers or he had in his home. All of these items had been issued to his unit at work. Investigators say the stolen items range from small to the very large. It included military scopes and weapon parts, night vision goggles to all terrain vehicles. And you know that's a very large item. So, how come an ATV was purchased and kept and went undetected? And that's not cheap. There had to have been very little oversight for the unit's money for something like this to have gone on for over 2 years. It just does not make any sense to me. But other items he stole included electric guitars, bayonets, swords, tools, welding equipment, electronics, and of course, when they raided his home, they also found over $100,000 in cash. So this was a lucrative business that was generating a lot of money. And to avoid being detected, Hammond and his wife had several bank accounts. All of the money was definitely not going into the same place, and that would definitely have raised suspicion if they were putting all the money in one bank account. So they spread the money out in several bank accounts. And I tell you, that probably they were smart enough to know that if those bank associates saw a lot of money coming into your account all of a sudden, they would notify the feds. They sure would. Any suspicion of illegal activity, they would notify the feds. So, in order to avoid any type of suspicion, this was Hammond's wife's role. She had several bank accounts in her name, and she would be directing the purchasers where to put the money into which account, and the money would be wired into those accounts. And in April of 2023, Hammond did plead guilty. And this is from the DOJ's website. It says he pled guilty to 6 charges, including theft of government property, wire fraud, money laundering, mail fraud, and transportation of stolen goods. They said he was convicted by a jury of an additional count of money laundering and aiding and abetting. So it seems as if he had more than one case going on at the same time. And based on these charges right here, this conviction, he was facing up to 30 years in prison. And his wife, Major Hammond, it doesn't appear that she pled guilty to anything, but she was convicted by a federal jury for spending money laundering proceeds. So the money that they had gotten illegally, she was spending it, and they got her on that. But they also got her for aiding and abetting, and she was facing up to 10 years in jail. So fast forward to July 24th of 2024 with the most recent release from the Department of Justice as it pertains to sentencing. According to reports, Christopher Hammond was sentenced to 3 years in jail and ordered to pay $500,000 in fine. That's $250,000 in restitution and another $250,000 in forfeiture. Now, these charges were filed in the civilian court, so it's unclear what decisions the military made, but I'm sure by the time Christopher Hammond pled guilty to any of those charges, he most likely was already released. And who knows about his retirement pay? But I don't know that to be true. I'm only speculating here. I don't have facts about anything that was done in the military. Uh, I did see a one-line statement saying that Heather Hammond was eventually acquitted by a jury. That's all I saw is one line, no further elaboration. And this is what I think happened. I think she probably was indicted by the grand jury and she chose to go to trial and she was acquitted by a jury. I'm just wondering how it affects her military career. I'm not sure. That information also is not available, but I do know it's been reported that her husband, who was the person actually requisitioning the items and took a lead role in selling them, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. So I just had to do some reflecting, and here's my take on all this. It appears that some of these are negotiated pleas and the sentences that go along with them, they just seem to be so weak that they don't really make a criminal say, I don't think I really want to do that again. They're just so very weak, and I'm happy to say these words the second time within a few months. I said it a few months ago when you had this military officer who was given probation after he had been essaying a child. The negotiated plea where he pled guilty, he was given probation and required to register as a sex offender. That's it. And I'm having to say that again. Maybe this is isolated to military service members of a particular rank, I don't know, but I'm just shaking my head in disappointment. Seems like they're all playing in our faces. This man is not a novice. He's a seasoned professional who betrayed his profession. He intentionally planned and executed a scheme in which he stole almost $2 million from his job. And when he's caught, his punishment is simply a slap on the wrist. 3 years. He'd be out of jail in no time. And the money I'm sure he's hidden away, allegedly, that was not found. I'm sure that money would allow him to continue living a luxurious life as before. And again, I have to say allegedly. You 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 could have given him those 3 years last year, but all this memento is allowed to build up, and what people would say, people would assume would be a sentence that would send a message to future criminals. And when the sentence is given, it's simply a disappointment. Just stop wasting our time. It's just not worth it. And that's all I have for you right now, but feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks like just like this one, that's the notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.